What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, it is Tuesday, which means it's Tuesday with Turbo, and this is actually Tuesday. I do know that the last couple weeks I have been kind of MIA, but the flu decided to come through the office. So one week we were both sick, and the next week I'm pretty sure you didn't want to hear me hacking all over the place. So thankfully that's in the rear view, so we can kind of focus on what's going forward. And speaking of today, man, it is cold. It is cold once again. So, as I always say, if you are able to reach out to any elderly family members or neighbors, see if they need anything, just check in on them, make sure everything's okay. If you're going to the store, see if they need something, and just kind of help everybody out. Because as we know, the colder it gets, the more unlikely or hard it is for our elderly folks to get out and about. So do your part and see if you can help out, like I said, a family member or neighbor. But yes, like I mentioned, it is Tuesdays with Turbo, and I'm always excited to do these because, let's be frank, most everyone does not know the ins and outs of your insurance coverages, your insurance policies. So that's where this comes in, because I am your insurance resource. So let me help you. A couple weeks ago, when we did this, we were talking about, or it came up in conversation about home-based businesses or home-based offices. And I said, all right, that's a whole other video in and of itself. So here it is. And let me know if you yourself or know someone that does have a home-based business. You don't need to tell me who they are. Just let me know yes or no, because in this day and age, they're becoming more and more popular. And, when it comes to the side hustles that everyone does, and whether, like I said, whether it's a side hustle or your primary job, you could be opening yourself up to risks that your regular home policy will not cover. And that's what we're going to get into today. How to kind of fill the gap when it comes to a home-based business out of your home and the regular home policy that you have, because some companies are going to be cool with it, some companies are not, and the only way to know is to talk to your agent. And before we kind of get going into the meat and potatoes of this is going to be very company dependent. Some companies, if they have your home policy, will want the business policy. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, do I need a separate business policy? And we're going to cover that as well. But in the event that you do, most companies will require that they have both the home and the commercial policy, because they can work hand in hand. Instead of having your home policy with company A and your commercial policy with company B, something happens and then they have to kind of fight and see who's going to pay for the claim situation. So as you can imagine, it is not always the easiest thing when you try to get two insurance companies to cooperate with one another. So that's why a lot of times, most of the time, your home company, the company that has your home policy will require that they have the commercial policy as well. Sometimes, if it's a reputable company that has your commercial policy, because there are some companies that don't dabble in the commercial space, so it's kind of hard to have both policies with them. So as long as the coverages are correct, and a lot of times they'll have you submit a declaration page for either policy to the other company, then they're okay. And like I mentioned, there's some cases where the regular home policy with the proper endorsements can help fill the gaps. So let's get started. Give you some kind of ideas, some for instances, and to kind of let you know what we're working with here, just to make sure that you are covered the best that you can. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to a home office or home business, we have to talk about business property, your business equipment, whether it's computers, whether it's you're making a physical product and that product requires special equipment, i.e. saws, nail guns, things of that nature, or let's say you're just a CPA and you have your computer. There are most most home policies will allow up to, I believe it's a $2,500 business property coverage on the base home policy. And you might be asking yourself, well, what if I have more? Well, some companies will allow us to just add a home business endorsement, and we can add coverage that way for said equipment. Some companies will require that this does have to be written on its own separate commercial policy, which is fine. Consider adding an endorsement to your home policy or purchasing a business property insurance policy to cover expensive office equipment. And we're going to get into kind of when it does come to electronics, we need another layer of protection to make sure that not only you but your clients are being covered. Now, the next thing to consider is the liability. And you might be saying, well, what kind of liability would I be incurring? Well, when you have a home-based business, people come to you for your service. 9 times out of 10, there are a lot of businesses where you are delivering a physical product where no one comes on premises. So that might not require this level of liability, but 9 times out of 10, especially if we're talking about, I'm trying to remember the video we did where this came up, but say you're a photographer and your studio is in your home. Clients are coming in your home and on your property. If you're a CPA or anything that requires a meeting, a lot of times clients will be coming on the property. Now, what happens if someone slips and falls? Well, that's a very, very common thing. For example, if a client trips on your front step or slips inside your home, their medical expenses or lawsuits may not fall under your home policy. So that's where it kind of gets a little bit murky and it kind of gets a little bit unsure. Now, picture this: if this is your main income, then we need to sit down and seriously talk about this. If it's a side hustle or a side business, then we still need to talk about it, but it's not as pressing because it's not your primary source of income. And the last thing you would want to do is to jeopardize your primary source of income just because A, you didn't know that this needed to be written commercially, or B, you hadn't talked to your agent to make sure that the company that you have your home policy with, what their rules and regulations are. So this is something that, there's a lot of folks that are like, well, I'm already paying a boatload for my home insurance. Why would I want to pay any more for a separate policy to cover this business? Well, the business is a source of income, and we want to make sure that we're protecting that. And on top of that, the liability and lawsuits that could come, it could be life-changing. So when it comes to these things, being naive is not acceptable. Depending on the business, like I said, whether it's digitally or if you're producing a physical product, we need to have that conversation with you. Operating a business from home can increase certain risks, such as fire hazards from extra electrical equipment or theft of business-related materials. Again, like we already talked about the addition, the $2,500 for business property on a standard home policy. If your laptop, your camera, your insert name of said equipment here goes over that $2,500, we need to make sure that that's taken care of, whether that's via endorsement or on a separate policy. But then again, the more, like I said, fire hazards from extra electrical equipment. This comes to mind like a wood shop. If you're making planners or cabinets or crafts even, the increased load on this, especially with flammable material like sawdust and whatnot, is a very, very increased risk. And, with proper surge protectors, wiring, and other safety measures can reduce the possibility of this, but it still needs to be taken into consideration. Now, one of the big ones that I don't really see, especially when it comes to a lot of just regular home-based businesses, is zoning and licensing. Some municipalities have zoning restrictions and require permits for running businesses out of your home Violation could affect your ability to obtain insurance or file claims. If it's not zoned correctly, then even if the policy is written and signed off, and if you've had it for years, if it's zoned incorrectly, if there's a major loss, the insurance company is going to do a little bit poking around. If they find this out, they could just not pay the claim out. So this is something that you need to make sure you're operating your business with the proper permits and everything is zoned correctly. This isn't really, there's an insurance policy per se against this, but if it is not zoned correctly, there could be just not a payout on claims, which is the worst case scenario. Let's talk about loss of income coverage. If your home is damaged and you can't operate your business temporarily, standard home insurance typically doesn't cover lost business income. Again, this would be right up the alley of a regular commercial policy that could have that put in place. Look into business interruption insurance to protect your income in case of a disaster that disrupts your work. This is a standard coverage on most business policies, so it's something that could be easily fixed. Now, when we were talking about electronics, I said there was another layer of security that we really need to talk about, and that's cyber liability. Running a business from home can often involve storing sensitive client information, and data breach or cyber attack may not be covered on your home policy. If you're taking any sort of electronic payment, whether even if that's with PayPal, Venmo, Stripe, anything like that, there is an added security risk. And again, cyber is a very inexpensive addition to a commercial policy. I do not believe cyber liability in this case would be. I don't believe there is a company, or at least a personal lines company, that will add an endorsement for that. So that is something that would be strictly commercial. Okay. If you're using part of your home for business purposes, the value of that space may need to be factored differently in your policy. Some insurers require you to discuss this to ensure accurate coverage. And this falls also along the lines of for tax purposes as well. But as far as we'll kind of leave that one at that. Work with your insurer to calculate the percentage of home used for business and update your policy accordingly. Bundling. If your business operates in a way that significantly changes your home's use, running a daycare, which if you're running a home daycare, that needs to be addressed wholeheartedly, because daycares are extremely hard to insure, especially if there's more than 4 children. So keep that in mind if you are running a home-based daycare. Those can be kind of tricky and kind of expensive, to be honest with you. You may find it hard to bundle your home insurance with standard policies, leading to higher premiums, because especially if there's more than 4 kids in your at-home daycare, there is not a standard company that will cover that. That is something that needs to go. We go to brokers. Now there are definitely markets for it, but what we would do is there would be a policy that would cover the structure itself, the liability, and all the coverages associated with the daycare exposure. And on top of that, the home would have to meet certain criteria. Like there can't be pools, guns have to be cared for and stored in a certain fashion. As far as there's just a whole slew of checked boxes that you have to check to actually come to be able to do that. A home office can blur the lines between personal and business insurance needs. It's important to discuss your specific setup with your insurance provider to ensure that you're fully covered. Adding the right endorsements or a separate business policy can give you peace of mind and protect your business assets. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the key thing. Communication. Talk to your agent to make sure that everything is the way it should be. There's no cutting corners. A lot of times, like I mentioned, well, I just don't want to pay any more money. It's always a better idea to pay a little bit more up front without without having you being caught with your pants down at the end. There's a reason why this stuff is the way it is, because the insurance companies have had many years of data to back this up. And that's the reason why they either some require separate policies or some that are a little bit more lenient so that we can endorse a regular home policy. And a regular home policy can be a very powerful and a very in-depth policy where we can add and subtract a lot of things. But if your agent doesn't know what's going on, then we can't add or subtract anything. We can't make that policy yours and make sure that it's protecting you, your business, and your family. So open up that line of communication and let us work for you, because that's our job. That's our job. Our job is to work for you and to protect your assets. That's what we're here for. So let us know if you do have a home-based business. I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you and go over your options just to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. And with every home is unique, and every home-based business is unique. So let's make sure that you're not only with the proper company, but you're insured properly as well. So if you do want to contact me, you can comment on this video. You can send me a Facebook message, or here is the number to the office, as well as my email. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my little spiel about home-based businesses. I told you we would revisit this at some time, and I figured, what the heck? Let's knock the rust off a little bit. It's been a couple weeks, and let's just dive into this before I forget. But B, I do know this is a growing business and a growing field that a lot of folks don't really realize how to handle this. And like I said, that's what we're here for. So let us know if we could help you in any way, shape, or form. And if you do not own a home business, I guarantee there's someone on your timeline that does. So do me a favor and share this video so that they can see this and help them make sure that not only their business is properly insured, but their home and their family. So ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with that. I will see you next week. And everyone stay warm, stay safe.